Yeah. Price elasticity of supply is the percentage change in quantity of supply over the percentage change in prices. Now, if this is more than one, this means that changes in quantity of supply will be bigger compared to changes in prices. This is called elastic. The opposite would be called inelastic, when price changes are bigger than quantity of supply changes. Now, here you can see that elastic, price elasticity of supply is greater than one, inelastic, smaller than one. Now, in order to be able to understand the situation, let's look at two extremes. When supply is perfectly inelastic, price elasticity of supply is almost zero. Of course, it will never be completely zero, but we assume it is to be able to understand something and make a point. The point is, if you look at the supply curve, the more vertical the supply curve is, the more inelastic it is. A supply curve that's like this, it's almost vertical, therefore it's inelastic. Because this supply curve is perfectly inelastic, it's completely horizontal. For example, this one, this is inelastic because it's almost vertical. Now, when it's all like 45 degrees, it's neither elastic nor inelastic, which is also called unit elastic. This means that changes in quantity of supply will always be equal to changes in prices. As supply curve becomes flatter and flatter and flatter, it becomes more elastic. This is almost flat, so this is an elastic supply curve. This is completely flat, so this is perfectly elastic. There are certain determinants. The more easily sellers can change the quantity they produce, it's more elastic, therefore. When, for example, we say supply of beachfront property, it's harder to grow and thus less elastic than the supply of new cars, for example. New cars can be easily produced. There are lots of iron out there, lots of inputs, lots of people who know how to make it, lots of skilled workers. You could easily produce tons of more cars if you need to. But beachfront property, not really. You're only limited to a certain type of land. You cannot build beachfront properties anywhere. You only need to be on the beach, of course, and there's only limited land available for you to build because of certain geographical and legal limitations. So supply of beachfront property is limited. When demand for beachfront property goes up and up and up, suppliers cannot produce more and more and more. So at a certain point, they need to increase prices more than they can increase the supply. Supply of beachfront property is harder to vary and thus less elastic than supply of new cars. Price elasticity of supply is greater in the long run. In the long run, every type of elasticity is bigger. Why? Because you have time to think. You have time to plan. You have time to prepare. You can react to changes in the market better compared in the short run. In the short run, you're surprised. If I tell you right now, in 30 minutes, I'm going to ask you to prepare for a quiz. You don't have time to prepare. So you will have to just use your knowledge so far. But if I tell you I'm going to take an exam in 2 weeks, you have 2 weeks time to prepare. So you'll be more prepared, you'll be more flexible. Price elasticity of supply is greater in the long run than the short run. Now, let's look at this example. This is quite a tricky example. The supply of beachfront property is inelastic, while the supply of new cars is elastic. Suppose population grows, causes demand for both goods to double. At each price, quantity of demand will doubles. For which of these products, price changes the most, for which quantity changes the most. Let's look at this example. First, beachfront property. This is quantity, this is price. Now, our demand, let's assume it doubled. Our supply is constant, so our demand doubled. Now, in this case, when it comes to beachfront property, when supply is inelastic as it is for beachfront property, an increase in demand would change prices more, has a bigger impact on prices than on quantity. Again, remember, percentage change, quantity supplied over percentage change of prices. This is less than 1. This is given. Beachfront property, inelastic. Therefore, this always changes more than this one. Because demand has shifted, now more people want what we're producing, which is beachfront property. What does law of demand tells us? When demand for a certain good goes up, what happens to price? According to the law of demand? Anyone? What happens when our demand for something goes up? Will the price go up or go down? Prices increase. Thank you. When prices increase, exactly. There's my maps. Yeah, here. So prices increased, and we know that this is an inelastic good. Therefore, answer me now. Will our quantity of supply increase more than prices or less than prices? Let's assume this increased by 20% due to the law of demand. Our quantity of supply, this is not about demand here. This is about the supplier's ability to meet the demand by producing more. How much will it increase? More than 20% or less than 20%? You could always write this expression like this. Percentage change in quantity supplied is less than percentage change in prices. If this increases by 20%, this will be increasing by how much? More than 20% or less than 20%? Less than 20. Again, thank you, exactly. If this increases by 20%, because we are having an inelastic supply, this will be less than 20%. Let's say, for example, 10%. This is for an inelastic good. Now, the opposite holds for the elastic good, for the new car. Because this car is elastic, when we move from demand 1 to demand 2, because there are lots of competitors like Ford, Chevy, Toyota, Hyundai, Volkswagen, all these many different companies producing cars. When there are more customers in the market, when demands go up, these companies will fight each other and try to outprice one another so that they can keep the customers and get the new customers. So Here, quantity will increase more than prices. Here, we're dealing with an elastic supply, which means like this. This elasticity here is greater than 1. Therefore, our change in prices, let's say if this is 20%, this one will be more than 20%. This will be like 30%. When supply is when supply is elastic, an increase in demand has a bigger impact on quantity than on price. Also, we talked about this. Elasticity is not equal all over the curve. When, for example, you have a supply curve like this, your elasticity is not the same as here than compared to here. When you reach this point, you're usually in normal situations, you're all in most cases, as you go move forward along the quantity, your supply will become less elastic. Why? Because your resources are harder to find. It's harder to find inputs. This is, for example, let's say you're selling lumber. People are buying your lumber from here. They started to buy lumber. More people coming. And all the time you have to cut trees in the forest. You have to cut trees. When you reach a certain point, the forest is disappearing. There are only so many trees in the forest. So as more people moving and trying to wanting to buy your lumber, you have to increase prices more and more because there are only a limited number of trees available. So as you move, your prices will move more than your quantity. For example, at this point, when you move from here to here, your prices change this much, while your quantity only changed by this much. And this is bigger. Prices changes are bigger. When price changes are bigger, remember here in the formula, when this is bigger, therefore this is less than 1, and we call this inelastic. Supply often becomes less elastic as quantity rises due to capacity limits. There are only a limited number of trees in a forest. The same applies to everything. For example, if I want to open up an insurance company, first I start to hire all these kids, all these new graduates from schools with MBA degrees, with finance degrees, with accounting degrees. I start to hire them and open up my business. When more people start demanding my services as an insurance company, I have to start hiring more and more. At one point, it will be harder for me to find that many suitable candidates in North Carolina, so I have to move out of state. I have to find people out of state, from out of state. And in order to encourage them to join my business, I need to pay them more and more. Therefore, my prices will have to increase more and more because my capacity is limited. This is the problem. If you think about it, this is very beautiful. A supplier is also limited, like a consumer. A consumer is limited based on what? Based on budget. I have a limited budget. There are only so many cars I can buy before I run out of money. My budget is limited. And the supplier is also limited. There are only so many people you could hire. There are only so many land you could build a factory on. There are only so many trees in the forest. And this very simple statement, it becomes a huge literature in economics. When you talk about, for example, the environment, while we're consuming everything we have right now, are we sustainable? Are we able to keep consuming like this for the next 200 years? Or no, soon we're going to run out. These are very important questions. And as we move forward, these questions are now more important, more important, more important. And elasticity plays a huge role in these questions. There are other types of elasticities as well. It's not only price elasticity. One of the most important forms of elasticity for consumers is income elasticity of demand. When I want to buy something, not only I'm sensitive to price of that thing, I'm also sensitive to my income, to how much money I have in my pocket. In order to be able to consume something, first of all, I need to have the capacity to buy it. The money in my pocket should be enough for me to buy it. Now, as the money in my pocket goes up or down, I will react. If I'm twice as rich, I'll be buying myself, let's say, twice better smartphones, or twice the number of cars I have right now. Right now, I have only one car. If I'm twice richer, I'll be buying myself another car. So we would react. We are sensitive in our consumption based on our income. Richer, consume more. Poorer, consumes less. Of course, when it comes to income elasticity of demand, we also have two different types of goods. Normal goods, they're normal, they're behaving normal. Inferior goods are the types of goods that you would consume less as you get richer. For example, fast food. The students love fast food. Why? Because we're all living on limited budget and we have limited time. We have too much time. We have too many things to do. So as we are richer and richer, as we graduate and find work, we will consume less and less fast food and more better types of food. Income elasticity of demand, changes in quantity of demand over percentage change in income. For example, let's assume a sports car like a Ferrari. This is a very elastic good. Luxuries are elastic. So income elasticity is bigger than one. Now, if the Ferrari Corporation tells me, like sends me an email, okay, you're lucky. We just decided to offer you a 50% discount over our newest for our newest model. I still won't be able to buy. So price elasticity of demand really not important for me when it comes to a Ferrari. I won't be able to buy it at my current demand because I'm limited to my income. What is important when it comes to a Ferrari is my income elasticity. This is important. If my income goes up, let's say I start a company after I graduate and I make $5 million a year. When my income goes up by that much and it becomes $5 million a year, then my quantity can also go up from 0 to 1. From 0 to 1 is huge, therefore it's bigger than 1. And as my income goes up and up and up, my quantity of consuming a Ferrari will also go up. So price elasticity of demand is not the only elasticity we care about. There are other types of elasticities that define our consumption behavior. Most importantly for us, income elasticity. We need to be able to afford goods to be able to purchase them. Any questions? Am I making sense? Sometimes when students aren't asking questions, like there are two possibilities. Either everyone is getting it or no one is getting none of it, like any of it. So if you're not understanding this, because this is a really important discussion, maybe going fast at some point. If you're not understanding what I'm saying, make sure you ask questions. I'll be happy to uh, redo it again. You'll definitely see a really big, huge question on the exam, on your final exam on elasticity, because it's a very important discussion. Another type of elasticity, a cross price elasticity of demand. How much my consumption of a certain good, my demand for a certain good would change when prices of different other goods change. How much the quantity of demand of one good responds to a change in the price of another good, percentage change in quantity of demand of the first good, divided by the percentage change in price of the second. Now, here we also have a concept of negative elasticity, which also applied to income elasticity for inferior goods. But here, let's say changes in quantity of demand for some good, for let's say demand of laptops and tablets over percentage change of price of tablets. Now tell me, laptops and tablets, are they substitutes or complements? Usually. Are they usually substitutes or complements? Remember, substitutes are goods that I could substitute. Like instead of buying this, I could be buying that. And it would almost do the same job, complete the same tasks for me. Complements are goods that I need them both together to be able to perform a certain task. So laptops and tablets, are they substitutes or complements? I need answers. Substitutes, exactly. Thank you. So when price of something goes up, like tablets, when price of tablets goes up, laptops are the substitutes. Are laptops now more attractive to me or less attractive? When this goes up, is it more attractive, laptops? Are they more attractive or less attractive? Will I be wanting to consume more of them or less of them? These are substitutes. So price of tablets go up. If you were a person who would want to consume, let's say, certain electronics to be able to do this task of joining us in our Zoom lectures, and you see tablets are now more expensive, you would be willing to switch to laptops instead. So yes, you will want to consume more. This is the book example. Tablets and laptops are substitutes. Of course, this is the beauty of economics. Some goods could be both. They could be substitutes and complements at the same time. For example, right now, I'm using my tablet as a complement to be able to write the stuff on the board and do this task of teaching online. Now, in this case, you're completely right. When price of a substitute goes up, quantity of demand for its substitute will also go up. But what about complements? When two goods are complements, you need them both together to be able to uh, do a certain task. Let's say keyboard and mouse. Keyboard and mouse. You need them both together to be able to use your computer. Right now, I have a mouse and I have a keyboard attached to my laptop. So I need them both working together to be able to use my laptop. When price of keyboards go up, what would happen to the quantity of demand for a mouse? Down, exactly. Thank you. When prices of keyboards go up, fewer people will be able to set up a personal computer. So they say, okay, now that I won't be able to afford a computer, I won't be needing a mouse anyway. You don't need a mouse on its own. Like, what would you do with a mouse? So you would not buy a mouse as well. Therefore, when this goes up, this comes down. This is a negative value. Therefore, your elasticity, cross-price elasticity for a complement is less than zero. This is why we have that. Now, there are so many different applications for elasticity. It's a very important thing that us economists, now I really don't know which one had it first, us or engineers. And I don't really want to start a fight, especially since I'm putting this on YouTube. So we're going to assume that economists, I'm going to give this one to engineers. I'm going to assume that engineers invented it and we took it from them because it's very important. Let's see one of the oldest and most important applications of elasticities. Can good news for farming be bad for farmers? Well, your common sense, when you look at it, you say, no, of course not. Farmers would like to be able to produce more and more and more to be able to make more money. Let's say a new hybrid of wheat increased production per acre by 20%. The same thing happened during the Green Revolution. Now we have this new hybrid, new types of seeds that if you plant them, you'll be able to produce more by 20%. But will it actually help farmers? Remember, a farmer is a producer. A producer wants to maximize his profits. Profits of a farmer, because your costs are mainly fixed, the profits of a farmer is more about total revenues. Remember, total revenue minus costs equals profits. In this case, we don't talk about costs. We want to focus on your total revenue. Total revenue is equal your prices multiplied by your quantity of supply. How many goods you're selling, at what price, there you go, you have your total revenues. Now, let's say the government, or in Green Revolution case, I think it was certain philanthropist organization like the Rockefeller brothers. They came up with these types of new seeds. They invented them, which can produce more wheat per acre. And this was great. They managed to actually defeat hunger using this. But now that you increase your production like that, what happens is that your production goes up. The supply would go up. But then your demand is the same. So when supply goes up and demand doesn't change, people are still the same people they were yesterday. They want to eat as many breads as they wanted to eat yesterday. So when your supply goes up, law of supply, what happens to prices? When the supply of something goes up and demand stays the same, what happens to prices? Yes, prices would go down. Let's say I'm going to build, I have one of these and I'm selling it for like $200, and you need one of these. But then I tell you, I have two of these now. How much will you be willing to buy? You only need one phone. So I need to reduce my prices. I tell you, like, okay, buy two of these and pay me instead of 200, pay me 150. So you could buy one of these for you and another one for your friend. So I'll have to reduce my prices to encourage you to buy. That's the law of supply. When demands stay the same, if you increase your quantity of supply, your prices would go down. Now, we're talking about wheat here. Wheat is a basic food. The supply is inelastic. Uh, excuse me. Demand is inelastic. Therefore, when your prices fall and your quantity of supply or demand, when the equilibrium doesn't matter, then it's inelastic. This is less than zero. Therefore, the change in prices will be bigger than the change in quantity. This goes up, this one goes up, yes, but this one would fall more. If this goes up, but let's say 20%, because wheat is inelastic, people only want to consume as much as the same amount of bread, the prices would crash by, let's say, 30%. Therefore, your total revenue would go down. This goes up by 20%, that's a good thing. This crashes, this goes down by 30%. That's a very bad thing. So your total revenue would end up going down. That's why new farming technologies actually end up hurting farmers. Farmers would go bankrupt. So the government actually has to keep the supply under control. And in order to do it, you have to have farm subsidies. You have to pay farmers to don't do anything, to not to do anything. Paradox of public policy. You have to induce farmers not to plant crops. Like if I'm a farmer, the government will tell me, sir, this is your turn now. This year I'm paying you, let's say $50,000, just not to do anything. Just sit home, relax, enjoy. It is what it is. You just enjoy this $50,000 and do nothing. Of course, we all would love that. Like if supply of teachers would be inelastic, which is of course not. Think about that. The government could be paying me not to teach. Just sit home, relax, and as much as I love teaching, I would accept that offer just to help the society. So, of course, I'm joking. This is why we have a really huge, sophisticated agricultural policy in every country. Some people think that the governments are cheating and farmers and governments are working together behind the scene or conspiracies are there. No, this is because of elasticity, because there is no other way. Technologies become available. You cannot stop technologies from becoming available. Also, technologies are actually a good thing for many countries, many poorer countries. These new hybrids saved tens of millions of lives. People were starving before. Now people are not starving like that. Thanks to our new technologies, we could actually defeat hunger for the most part. So that's a good thing. But then the government needs to protect its farmers. Farmers shouldn't go bankrupt. Now, of course, this is a huge debate. I'm just trying to show you a simple application of elasticity in this public policy issue. Like some people say, okay, then let's let the market run its own course, let the farmers compete, and then certain farmers go bankrupt eventually or leave the market, change their job into something else, produce some other types of goods that people would need. But then others would say that agriculture is a strategic sector. We don't know what's happening future, next year, 2 years from now. So we need to maintain our farmers. We need to make sure they're there. So if the situation actually changes, we don't starve. People wouldn't starve. We can feed our population. If, let's say, God forbid, there is a war or a natural disaster or something like that, our farmers are there to serve the population, to produce food we need. Now, if you look at the curve here, an increase in the supply in supply in the market for wheat, your supply curve which shifts to the right because thanks to a new technology you can now produce more. When demand is inelastic and increase in supply, since demand for wheat is inelastic, let's say this is our supply curve, it will shift from here to here, and our demand curve is inelastic, so it's almost vertical, something like this. So when we move from this point to this point, this will be our new equilibrium. This is equilibrium 1, this will be our equilibrium 2. Two things happened. First of all, our quantity of supply increased. That's a good thing. We like that. We were selling more wheat now to the public by this much. Our quantity increased by this much. But then our prices, they went down from this point to this point. Our prices went down from here to here. This change is bigger compared to this change. Therefore, our total revenues crashed. So you can see here, there is no conspiracy, there is no one working behind the scene. It's just elasticity. And because it's a paradox, it gets on people's nerves because it doesn't make sense. But sometimes we have to redefine our what we call sensible. Another application, why did OPEC fail to keep the price of oil high? When you have increase in prices in the short term, there was a huge drop in supply of oil. In 1973, I think there was some kind of war and oil supplies crashed. I think I'm no history expert, so I'm not going to or try to explain this situation. I just know that some countries told that we're not going to sell oil, and then supply of oil crashed. So oil prices jumped, went up huge. Now, in the short run, countries like United States, China, Europe, these countries are consuming oil. They were surprised. They were shocked. They were taken by surprise. They couldn't do anything. So they had to pay more money and more money and more money for oil. In the short run, supply and demand were both inelastic. In the long run, however, these countries could think, could plan, could prepare, could adapt to the new situation, could find, let's say, new energy sources like the renewables or nuclear or coal. They could develop this technology of fracking, and therefore they could reduce their dependence on foreign produced oil. Therefore, in the long run, their price sensitivity is now more. Now, in the long run, supply and demand are elastic. Now, in this time, when oil prices go up, countries can actually now react and reduce their consumption more than before because now they have other alternatives. Remember, in the long run, always supply, demand are more elastic. You can see the oil market in the short run. In the short run, when supply and demand are inelastic, there is a shift in supply. This shift in the short run leads to a large increase in price. In the long run, however, it's the opposite. When supply and demand are elastic, you can see both curves are more flat. In the short run, they're like this. This is the supply curve. This is the demand curve. They're almost vertical. In the long run, however, they're almost flat. This is your supply curve. This is your demand curve. So now changes in price are smaller than changes in quantity. Another application that I'm going to come up from, not come up, I didn't invent it. I'm going to say it from my own and not from the slides. It's not written in the slides. Is in the environment. In the environment, let's say this is the supply of everything, like industry, services, everything for a country. This is the quantity of everything and price of everything. When you're talking about everything, the price of everything is the opportunity cost of producing it. The opportunity cost of producing everything is the environmental damage. I want to open up a factory. I need to get rid of that forest outside of my window. I need to have deforestation, which would hurt the economy. I want to start a chemical plant. I need to dump my waste into the water, which would contaminate the water. Again, we're hurting the environment. As you start here for producing more and more and more, let's say to here, you're only hurting the environment by this much, while you're gaining this much production. So why? Because in let's say 1900s, you didn't actually need to destroy a forest to build a factory. You could just build it in some field or in a desert without hurting the economy without hurting the environment that much. But as you keep produce, grow the economy, when you reach this point and you want to move further to this point, this is when you're already a developed country. So in order to move from this point to this point, you have to suffer a huge cost. You have to, because we're already developed, there's nothing more we could build without hurting the environment real bad. And that is why today people are concerned about, like, there are many reasons, but one of the main reasons that right now we're more concerned about the environment than 50 years ago is because of this. It's now more elastic. Sorry, it's now more inelastic. Now we're not that flexible. Now we're dealing with really the future of our children. If we keep producing more and more and more, at one point there will be no forest left so that our children can use the lumber and have furniture, or there will be no lake left for them to fish or even drink. At certain point there could be a disaster. There will be no more water to drink. We need to think about this because of the elasticity changes in the environmental policy. This is a very basic explanation of a very complicated argument. There are many people, some people who actually don't even believe in this curve, and they have their own reasons. Some people say the curve should be something like this. Some people say like this. It doesn't matter. For now, I'm just telling you that this whole curve and its elasticity is now being argued in science, in economics, in journals, in research. And that's one of the most important applications of elasticity these days. So, elasticity, again, a very important discussion. You will definitely see a question on your exam about this. If you have time, if you don't have time, try to find time. Spend 2-3 minutes reading this summary to be able to structure your thoughts. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Any questions? No? All right. If there's any questions, you can always email me. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye. Oh, thank you.